Good evening, everyone. My name is Lynn McCumber, and I'm the Executive Director of CHAPS, and I would like to welcome all of you here and those watching online to CHAPS Candlelight Vigil. It should be a very special evening. The theme of tonight's vigil that you have on your program is Recovery Rock Stars. So today I searched for definitions of rock star. We should be asking Ron Arnold here. And some of the definitions include a famous rock musician, one who is highly accomplished and well regarded in a particular field, or someone who is renowned amongst others. I then looked for the definition of recovery rock star. A recovery rock star is defined as one who has battled and continues to battle mental health and or addiction challenges in order to live a life filled with purpose and passion. Recovery rock stars are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, friends, sons, daughters, colleagues, bosses, teammates, coaches, etc. Recovery rock stars are baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, teens, seniors, and more. At CHAPS, we are blessed to be witness to recovery rock stars every day. We witness grace, acceptance, perseverance, resilience. We see people working on sobriety one day at a time. We see the courage and strength to get out of bed and move forward, even when one may feel paralyzed by the challenges of mental illness. There are some other amazing accomplishments we see here at CHAPS. In the past year, CHAPS has assisted over 250 homeless individuals and families with accessing decent, affordable, safe, permanent housing. In the past year, over 100 individuals came and volunteered at CHAPS while personally working on their own recovery. So far in 2021, the Journey Center has supported 44 persons in gaining employment in the community with 22 local employers. And so many others we know have found employment on their own. We see so many success stories, so many shining stars. We also have many rock stars in our community at large. The landlord willing to take a chance to offer a home to someone who hasn't had one. Employers offering a job and a fresh start to someone who hasn't been in the market for some time. Social workers tirelessly advocating and assisting those they serve. Family members offering their unconditional love and support. Our community who embraces the recovery mission. You are all rock stars. My closing message to you is keep working, keep shining, keep believing. Recovery can happen. I want to thank Armstrong Cable for being here this evening so this can be shared throughout the community. The Drop-In Center and the Journey Center and Pathfinders and all those who helped make this evening possible. I also want to extend a very special thanks to Amanda Markham, Christina Brink, and Nick DiNardo for all your work on this vigil. And finally, I want to thank our brave and inspiring speakers who are the cornerstone of this evening. So thank you all. It's my privilege now to introduce County Commissioner Eric Henry, who's going to read a proclamation, and we're very honored he's here. We know he's really busy, and he's certainly not here every day, but without the support of our county, we wouldn't be able to be here and do the job we do. So Commissioner Henry, I'd like you to come up now. Thank you. I'll let you stand and then I'll hand this to you.
Thank you, and this is my second year to come, so I appreciate the invite, of course. I think that she forgot to add a rock star herself because Mrs. McCumber is a big part of our community. As long as she is here, I think the care and the assistance people need are always going to be at the forefront of her mind and the mind of a lot of the people in Crawford County. Before I read this proclamation, I have the ability as an ambulance service owner to see a lot of people in need. And I will tell you that it doesn't matter who you are, your race, your gender, there's a lot of people that need help. And every time I can call CHAPS or Active Aging or the Human Services, they've always been there. One of the best things about Crawford County, I've lived here most of my entire life, is the services that we can provide. And I know sometimes people might give a bad rap to some services, but I am not one of those people. Because without those services, I don't know where we would be. It's nice for my ambulance crews at 2 in the morning to find someone homeless and find some place for them to go. Or find someone in an abusive situation and get them out of that. And so the services that are provided by everyone in Crawford County is certainly welcomed by the Crawford County Commissioners. So on behalf of Francis Wiederspan and Christopher Stroff, we do appreciate that. So I will read the proclamation for this year. Mental Health Week, October 2021. Whereas mental health is critical for our well-being and vitally as well as that of our families, communities, and businesses, and whereas the President's New Freedom Commission declared that mental disorders and mental health problems affect people of all backgrounds and all stages of life, and no one is immune, and whereas the World Health Organization found that mental illness ranks first in terms of causing disability in the United States and collectively are the most prevalent health problems in America today. More common than cancer, lung, and heart disease combined. I'll stop there just to think about that because that's pretty impressive when you think about what that says. Whereas 1 in 10 children has a serious mental health disorder, and if untreated can lead to school failure, physical illness, substance abuse, and even suicide. Whereas mental health disorders such as schizophrenia, depression, and anxiety disorders are real, common, and treatable illnesses. And whereas the U.S. Surgeon General has found that a range of mental health treatments of documented efficacy exists for most mental disorders. And whereas Crawford County has made a commitment to community-based systems of mental health care for all of our residents, and whereas the National Mental Health Association, the National Council for Community Behavioral Health Care, and their national partners observe Mental Health Awareness Week to raise awareness and understanding of mental health and illness. Therefore, the Crawford County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim October 17th through October 23rd, 2020, Mental Health Awareness Week. In Crawford County, as the County Commissioners, we also call upon all the Crawford County citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses and schools to recommit our community to increasing awareness and understanding of mental illness and the need for appropriate and accessible services for all people with mental illness. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Henry, and we'll be framing this and hanging it up in the center. It's now my honor to ask Ron Arnold to come up. He has been for many years with Crawford County Human Services, and they are truly one of our most vital partners in our service. So, Ron.
Thanks, Lynn, and thank you for having me come over today. My name is Ron Arnold. I am a program specialist with Crawford County Human Services. I have been working in the mental health field for, I'm doing math, 36 years. So I've been in and around mental health for 36 years, but in addition to working in the field for 36 years, I am also a person who personally has been going through my own recovery. When I was a young man, I was diagnosed with a bipolar illness, and I also had some pretty intense substance abuse issues. So part of my desire to get into this field was driven through a lot of things that I had gone through myself. So I want to talk a little bit about recovery. And I think of recovery as like this way of being as a result of this thing that happened. And I think the question is like, for me, it's like, what's wrong with you? And that's not the question. The question is, what happened? What happened to you? What thing happened to you that led you to this place where you have to change? Something has to change. And I think about it that way because it's a little bit easier to deal with than thinking of what's wrong with you, because I'm not beating myself up over it or anything like that. Something happened. Something happened to me. These changes occurred and they stopped working for me, so I have to do something different now. I mean, nobody asks for this. Nobody asks for a mental health diagnosis. Nobody asks for a genetic predisposition to mental health. Nobody asks for major depression. Nobody asks for an addiction. Nobody asks for it. It happens, right? I mean, it's not like I went in someplace and said, well, I'll have the bipolar 1 combo. Yeah, go ahead and supersize that. And now I'll have a side order of substance abuse too. All right, thank you. And nobody does that, right? I mean, that's not the way it works. So this thing happened, and I like to think of it, the way I visualize it sometimes is like a large stone got thrown into a pond that created these massive waves that sometimes continue to this day. Or maybe they die down to ripples now and again, or something else happens and these waves kick back up again. And recovery is me dealing with that, dealing with the fallout of the stone that repeatedly gets thrown. So the first thing that's necessary in recovery is acceptance. Like, this thing happened to me, and honestly accepting that this thing happened. I am dealing with a substance abuse issue. I am dealing with a mental health issue. Right or wrong, good or bad, fair or unfair, this happened to me, and I accept it. So what do I do now? I mean, what do I do at this point? I want to back up just a second, because a lot of times this thing that happened, I mean, is traumatic, right? And the way I like to think of trauma, the way that I've kind of come to define it for myself, is a loss of control, like control over safety, control over my well-being in the face of an overwhelming circumstance. I mean, when you talk to an addict that's in recovery, I mean, the first thing that they're going to tell you is, I lost control at some point, right? And even under mental health, if it's overwhelming and it's untreated, you may be out of control at some point. And it's that loss of control in the face of overwhelming circumstances that you're dealing with. And this can happen over and over and over again. So it could be a single event, like a giant house fire, it could be a traumatic event, or it could be a chronic thing that happens repeatedly over time. And it left this recurring stone that keeps getting thrown into the pond and making these waves that you have to deal with over and over again. So recovery is this ongoing dealing with this thing. It's dealing with the real waves. It's dealing with the after effects. It's dealing with the ripples. And it's doing it in an effective way, in a way that's going to work for you. And a lot of times recovery is absolutely necessary to get help. I mean, at places like CHAPS, places like drug and alcohol meetings, places like mutual aid societies, like 12-step programs, you have to have that help. And when I think of help, I mean, the truth about help is that in every element of help, there is an element of control. I mean, think about that. As helpers, you're assuming some control in order to assist this person in their recovery. And you have to be careful with that, because some control can feel just as overwhelming as that stone getting lobbed into a pond. I mean, I was thinking, just coming in here, if I came across somebody that fell on the ground, and I asked them, and it's important to ask, do you need help getting up? If they need help getting up and I reach my hand down and I take their hand, I am in control of their hand. And for some people that have experienced some really intense things in their lives, that little bit of control right there can be a triggering event. So for me as a helper, for me as a person that works in the field, I have to be aware of that. And I have to exercise caution with that, and I have to be careful with that. And ask if it's okay, and say what it is I'm going to do in helping them up. And then reassure as I'm helping them up, and ask if it was okay afterward. So maybe the next time a person falls, I'll be better at it. And recovery is better with help. It's better with support. It's better with people that have your back. You got to have somebody that has your back, and you have to have your own back too. And a lot of times, if you frame things in the fact, well, what's wrong with me? You don't tend to have your own back. You tend to judge yourself a little bit harshly. But if you think in terms of what happened to me, it's a little bit easier to get your own back and a little bit easier to help yourself along in recovery. So just to recap that, I mean, in recovery, there has to be acceptance of this thing. This thing happened. This thing has ongoing waves. This thing has ripples that don't really die down until you get well into your recovery. And for me, at first, when I was early on in my recovery period, it was like coping, right? So coping to me was learning how to swim in the troughs between the waves and surf the waves too. And that was my way to cope. The waves didn't go away, but I learned how to swim, I learned how to surf whenever either was appropriate. But then later on, with assistance from other people, with help, and I mean that could be medication-assisted treatment, it could be pharmacotherapy, it could be therapy, it could be certified peer specialists. And I love certified peer specialists. If you're a certified peer specialist, I just want to say I love you. Because you guys know what recovery is. You live it too. And you're that person that's reaching out your hand to help somebody's up and know how to do it because you've had that help too. And I really, really appreciate that. So the next step is resilience. And that's learning how to keep those waves to a minimum. Whether it be practicing mindfulness, whether it be practicing good health routines, diet, whatever it is that you do to keep those waves to a minimum so that they don't become overwhelming and swamp you. Nothing can change what happened to me. Nothing can change what happened to you. I mean, there's nothing so permanent as our past, right? But there's nothing so changeable as the way that we view it and the way that we understand it. And that's recovery too. So my hope for all these recovery rock stars out here, that you learn that way to keep those waves to a dull roar and make your way through recovery. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron. Great messages. We have two Mistress of Ceremonies tonight who have really worked hard on this evening, Amanda Markham and Christina Brink. And they both work here at CHAPS, and they'll tell you a little bit about what they do when they're up here. And it's my honor to first ask Christina Brink to come up. She's going to share a little bit about embracing our future. Our future are our transition age youth, the hope of tomorrow.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So over the past few years, CHAPS has made a great effort to bridge the gap in services for those who have aged out of children's programming but have not yet become eligible for adult services. We also understand that services geared towards adults may not be meeting the specific needs of those transitioning into adulthood, so we've worked hard to make sure that we are adapting to meet the transition age youth where they are at. Together, we have made great strides in the creation of youth and young adult programming. Our Certified Peer Support Program for Transition Age Youth is called COMPASS. This is a mobile program where certified peer support specialists are able to meet youth and young adults in the home and community to help them to build the skills needed to overcome whatever barriers their mental health may be creating. This might look like helping a youth to improve their self-care or time management skills to be able to maintain enough wellness to stay in school, get that homework done, and actually graduate. Or it might look like helping a young adult to not only find but maintain stable and safe housing. Another program we have is Pathfinders. Pathfinders is a site-based psych rehab program meeting on the second floor of CHAPS every Tuesday and Thursday evenings. This group aims to break down whatever barriers might have kept these kids from meeting and allows them to bond over the commonality of mental health and self-growth. Together, we learn and practice independent living, social, and coping skills. The path of this program is led by the youth's interests and needs. Since starting in March, we have gained a strong group of about 7 participants who have exhibited so much strength, resiliency, creativity, and growth, and we are truly grateful for their input and presence. We have also recently started a young adult support group, which is geared towards those who are out of school and trying to establish themselves as independent adults. We've had a handful of participants who have expressed gratitude for having the chance to process their stress and find a group that offers support and guidance. This group meets Wednesdays from 4 to 5 on the 3rd floor. For those of you listening, please know that we believe in the importance of fostering the health and happiness of this age group, as they so often fall through the cracks of the systems. Please reach out to the youth and young adults in your lives and let them know that they have a place to go and that there are people ready to support them. Thank you. So one of the young adults that we work closely with that's really changing lives and going to change the future is Daphne Hewlings, and I'm going to bring her up to speak and share her recovery story. So come on up, girl.
I can actually take this thing off.
Mm-hmm. Can you hold your water and phone?
No, because I'm going to use my phone.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Because I'm technologically advanced. All right. So I'm going to be different from everyone else that speaks because I hate writing things and reading from them. So hello, I'm Daphne Hewlings. I don't even know where to begin because I never write anything down. I've struggled with mental health literally my entire life. The first time I can even pinpoint an event or anything is just kind of, I was an only child and I never really had friends. I was awkward. Wow, consider that now. Because I'm up here and I'm just talking. And it's so strange to be here and just think back to when I was in like 6th, 7th grade and, oh my gosh, I hate microphones. And I was just like, I felt alone in the world all of the time because I just didn't know how to make friends. And all of the friends I did know how to make just left and weren't around, like they moved, and that's no fault of mine. And is something wrong with this, or am I just holding it weird? So like, oh God, brain. Okay, let me go back to my speech. So like, all of my friends just kind of moved, and I got really depressed and really lonely, and I struggled with self-harm, and I struggled with just everything. I withdrawed from the very little social life that I did have, and I was just lost for a while. And then I had a friend that found out that I was self-harming, and she ended up telling my principal. And I got to sit in a room with my principal for hours and he shared his life experiences and just kind of made me feel like a person. And that was probably the first step I took in recovery. And that's such a weird concept to think of as a 7th grader, that I was on a step to recovery and that I would have so many more other things to go through. When I was in high school, my parents got heavily addicted to drugs and alcohol, and I was in cosmetology school, and I was actually doing pretty good with my life and going towards a path that I wanted to go towards. And I was a very independent teenager. And I just was doing my own thing, so they decided that they could do their own thing and just not take care of me, even though I was not an adult myself. So when one night my dad got heavily intoxicated, he was throwing things screaming. At this point, my mom had moved out, so she wasn't home. And I heard him yelling at my dog, and I go upstairs and I see him throw my dog against a wall. That night I ended up in the hospital due to self-harming in front of him to try and get him to listen. Before this event, I hadn't self-harmed in 3 years. And since that event, I have only consciously self-harmed a few times, like in that kind of time frame. So I've been free from that for a while, which is good, which is progress on recovery. But even since then, I struggle with those thoughts every single day. They never go away. And that's so hard for people that don't understand mental health to understand, that nothing ever goes away. It's always there. It's always just kind of like a little friend that sits beside you, even though you don't want that annoying little friend that sits beside you. This is not your friend, but you gotta make friends with him if you want to survive, right? And I just feel like all of our stories are valid no matter how we got there and where we're going. And every single event and trauma that we've experienced makes us who we are and leads us to where we are now. And these traumatic events that I have not that I have like experienced in my life, I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't experienced those things. Like, I have no idea who I would have been, because when my parents got into those things, I left and I ended up being homeless for a while, and that led me to the work that I'm doing now with youth homelessness. And we're actually like, I'm in a position where I can change the system from the ground up so people in my positions don't feel lonely and hopeless and useless just because they fell through the cracks or anything, because no one deserves to feel that way. And it feels so good not only to be in my own steps of recovery every single day, but to help so many other people with theirs. And I think that's all I gotta say. So.
Sorry about the mic.
Flower.
You did so pretty.
It wasn't me, it was the mic. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, just watch your step on your way out. That's
All
for
right.
you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Daphne. That was probably one of the most inspiring stories I've heard from someone your age. Honestly, it takes a lot of bravery for people to stand up and admit what they've gone through to a room full of strangers, and to do it at your age. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, so thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
The next person I would like to introduce is actually someone who I've known for a few years, and I don't know what to say, but I think I've probably cried with this one a couple of times, and she's probably one of the strongest women that I know today, and I would like everyone to please welcome Stacy Phillips.
Okay, I'm extremely nervous. I just did my first speech a couple weeks ago, so this is second, and we'll see how it goes.
This was my first speech.
Was it? You did fantastic. Okay. Before I start, I always like to use the definition of resilience, because that's what I've been told for the past 4 years where I'm at, is that I'm very resilient. So, resilience is the ability to recover from or adjust to misfortune or change. and my name is Stacy, and I am a survivor of domestic violence and addiction. My abuser was my partner, but he physically, mentally, and sexually abused me for 4 years. But on September 10th of 2017, my life changed forever. That was the day that my abuser had strangled me to the point that I lost consciousness and I urinated myself, and his abuse was escalating from control to trying to kill me. So I went to my mother's the next day because I had felt like I had had a near-death experience, and I wanted to talk to her about it. She lived in the middle of nowhere, and out of the blue, a sheriff drove by and asked if I was okay because he heard me crying. And his name was Deputy Doolittle, my first saving grace. My abuser truly had me believing that everyone was against me, including the authorities, which meant that after hours and hours, Deputy Doolittle, with his patience, kindness, and compassion, I finally let my guard down and I trusted him. Because of his guidance, I made the decision to file a police report, and my abuser was arrested. And now is where my story really begins. Because from what I'm realizing, I'm going off of this a little bit, is that for 4 years, I was isolated. I was locked in basements. I dealt with partner rape. I dealt with psychological abuse so bad that I was gaslighted to the point that I couldn't even walk in a room not knowing if I was turning the lights on or off or if somebody else did. I got a protection from abuse order and was in constant contact with the DA on what was going on with my abuser. And after 30 days in jail, he was able to post an extremely high bond. The DA contacted me and said I needed to go into hiding immediately. I needed to find shelter. I had my family bring me to my safe haven. And this safe haven was known as Women's Services in our community. I was so sick mentally and physically when I went into my safe haven, weighing a mere 75 pounds and highly addicted to my prescription medication, which I call Adderall. Women's Services accepted me with no judgment, believed every word I said, comforted me, and most importantly, made me feel safe for the first time in 4 years. I had been beaten, sexually abused, isolated, strangled, and brainwashed so badly that I didn't even know how to function in society. I wouldn't go outside the shelter, so they brought the resources inside to help me. And through Women's Services, I found the courage to let my guard down and let them help me. They encouraged me to enter a rehabilitation center that dealt with addiction and PTSD. I finally learned about trauma while I was there and eventually started my trauma therapy when I got out. And I stayed connected with Women's Services, and through that, my second saving grace, Patty Prince, who guided me to a women's group that helped me build my confidence again. I slowly started to trust other women who were empowering me. It's been 4 years since I left my abuser, and the first 3 were all about resting and healing my brain. I went from leaving with a basket of clothing, experiencing daytime and nighttime flashbacks, to now having a healthy state of mind, buying my own car, getting a job, and a brand new apartment. But most importantly, I have found my self-worth and taken my power back. My advice to other men or women in this same situation is simply this: you have to put yourself first. If you're on substances, find support to help you get clean. You need to have a clean mindset to even think anything that is real or not real. In my particular situation, I was so sick that I didn't know what was reality, what wasn't reality, and you have to get the drugs and alcohol out. I can't emphasize that enough. Run with the resources that are given to you and find women or even men to empower you. I am so grateful for the friends that I have made, but mostly I'm grateful for my safe haven, Women's Services, and my saving grace, Deputy Doolittle. I have a quote here because it's about trauma. I'm going to read it. It says, "Trauma happens and harms us, but I often wonder if the worst trauma is the second wave, when your story is misbelieved, mistrusted, and misaligned. May your story find safe harbor in the presence of people who honor both your vulnerability and resilience. And that is extremely true, because I did not even touch base, because this is the second time, and about my recovery. On top of it, I am a recovering alcoholic. I've been clean for 4 years. When I got out of the rehab I was in, I did 90 and 90. Thank you very much. And I have stayed clean because I have a clear head and I have support. And I cannot emphasize enough how much it is that if you have those support and resources, to take them and fly with them, because I'm living proof that it can happen. And because honestly, even a year ago, I wasn't this good. I was walking around with a baseball cap on for 2 years of my life. And slowly that baseball cap came off and I started wearing a braid. And I'm like, the braid is not me. And I finally cut that off and I have my hair. And I'm like, this is who I am. Who I am on the inside is finally showing on the outside. So what I just want to say is anybody else can do it. Thank you. I don't want that to fall. Is that okay?
I thought you were great.
You guys go. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Stacy. Sorry. If the mic doesn't work very well, we just need to start yelling, so.
Oh,
But
you should have told me that to begin with.
sorry. So,
Not to begin with.
thank you, Stacy. And I can honestly vouch for her that she is a completely different person than when I first met her. I mean, I wouldn't have recognized her if I didn't know she was coming. So, yes, thank you for coming and sharing that with us. The other part of this is, the bravery. I don't think I would have been able to express that much pain and trauma and keep it together. I would have been falling apart. So I am so in admiration of you and of you, Daphne. And the next person I would like to introduce is Mr. Ryan Turney. He is a wonderful father that has come through a lot, and I am pretty sure he's going to be making some pretty big steps in his future. Everyone, Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. This really is a humbling experience. I am so grateful for, my recovery, my fresh chance. And, I want to take just a moment of silence to acknowledge a power greater than myself and, think of those who are still sick and suffering. The universe throwing money at me. No, I walked. I actually took a little bit of time and I strolled Chestnut today, and I met a few interesting people in the community that, surprisingly enough, are dealing with what we're all dealing with here. For my recovery, it's been crucial that I pay attention to my mental health, have an understanding of my experience and traumas, and, like they always said, substance abuse. I stand here with 438 days of continued sobriety. I do count my days. I have to remind myself every day what I'm doing and why I'm doing this. I'm a veteran, combat veteran in the infantry 2005. I have PTSD and TBI. And so that has been a huge challenge in my life as well. Life got challenging. Predisposed. My mother died never finding sobriety. She struggled trying to find sobriety for 26 years. Took me to my first AA meeting when I was 8 years old. I watched her go in and out of rehabs and in and out of halfway houses. And I swore that I was never gonna do that to my family. I swore I was never gonna do that to my kids, because just the mess. I changed schools 9 different times. I probably had 13 different addresses. There was no real consistency in times. I can legitimately say that me and my sister walked to school uphill in the snow both ways. We were living with my grandparents, and you go down Valonia and up Valonia to Thaddeus Stevens Elementary School in LA, Pittsburgh. So, I've seen, and she told me she could get addicted to Visine because of the way it changes the way her eyes feel. And I've offered her into my house, and I've had to take her to rehab. I saw the struggle. And but it was never enough for me not to pick up. I've always dabbled. I always kept that reservation that, hey, I can have a beer, and there's no harm in it. And most of the time there wasn't, until it became a problem. And then it stayed a problem. Whereas mental health is huge, like Daphne said, or I'm sorry, Stacy said, I could not touch my mental health until I dealt with my substances. Until I wasn't constantly, randomly altering my brain chemistry, my brain could never get any consistency, any rhythm. So I was using because of the way I was feeling, and essentially I was feeling because I was using. It was a real chicken and the egg, disaster. But, let's talk about mental health real quick. Mental health, refers to what we think and what we do and what we feel. And a mental illness is a disorder, a cognitive disorder, emotional disorder, behavioral disorder. And everyone at some point in time has a risk of developing a mental health disorder. 1 in 5 adults face some kind of mental disorder every year. Mental health can affect daily living, relationships, and physical health. Physical health, relationships, and daily living can also affect your mental health. Again, another chicken and the egg. So we're getting a lot of variables. Bear with me. When it comes to some of the most common disorders, clinical depression, anxiety, bipolar, dementia, ADHD, ADD, autism, post-traumatic stress, and I threw substance abuse in there. I could almost qualify for every single one of them. I've struggled with, behavior control, behavioral thinking. At one point in time in my disease, I thought some things were okay when I knew I was behaving terribly, and it was self-destructive, but there was nothing I could do about it. I needed help, and I needed to find it. And so we all have something that we run to and we use as coping mechanisms. I guess so. In my program, it's important to be there for the next alcoholic who's still sick and suffering. And I had this, I'm not gonna call it a revelation because, there's really nothing new under the sun. When you hear everybody's story, there's similarities. There's a common problem, so there's a common solution. Whether it's substances, whether it's, lust, whether it's shopping, whether it's gambling, we all have something that we could really be self-destructive. We use those events because it's the science behind it, I believe, ultimately it's the changing of the brain chemistry that we're really chasing. As much as I knew about using, I used because I didn't want to feel. I don't believe any substance had any control over me. I believe I just didn't want to feel how I was feeling. I didn't want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel the anxiety. I couldn't function. And then I couldn't function without the substance. I was getting the shakes. I went to rehab in 2018. My sister drove me. Was there for 4 months down at the VA in Butler. I learned a lot. Did a lot of good things with the veterans. I got out, went right back to it because nothing changed. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So I too seen, out of the 68 guys I was there with, I know at least 12 of them are dead now. It's really like if you can come out of, substance abuse, it's really, really hard. Not everybody's doing it. But you got to be open to it. Let me get into how. How it works is how it works. If you're not honest about where you're at, if you don't have an adequate inventory of yourself, you don't know where to make the adjustments, you don't know where to capitalize on your strengths, and you don't know how to fix your weaknesses. So but awareness is only half the battle. Faith without works is dead. And if you're not willing to put the efforts in, it's my aha moment. I'm getting jumbled. So you can catch the addict and the alcoholic or anybody suffering when they're at their lowest point. You can try to guide them to help. Why not get the alcoholic's attention before his first drink? Why not really start, I had this little vision that I want to instill some of the life-changing principles of recovery into youth before they start picking up and before they start, developing these really bad habits of over-shopping and just bringing awareness. And then to come to find out that there's a lot of people in the community who are already doing that, who are also interested into it. So I've kind of just been running with it. I Googled because, actually I didn't. I can't take credit for it. A friend of mine, I was talking to her about it, and she's kind of like a trauma counselor, and she dug the idea. And I was like, can you find me like some kind of medical evidence based on this idea of reaching, like a true substance prevention? And there's an Icelandic model of youth substance abuse prevention. Nationwide, 20 years ago, Iceland was one of the heaviest drinking communities for underage 15, 16-year-olds. And today, they're one of the cleanest living teens. It was just a nationwide initiative of basically what they call enforced common sense. Community, networking, monitoring, availability. The parents really stepping up, being aware of what your kid's doing, and just not doing it for your own kid, doing it for the next. And they've had a lot of success into it. So today, my obsessions now are, I'm trying to develop and think about how I can initiate a model similar to the one used in Iceland, but in my community. My son, he's 10. I said I have 438 days sober. 441 days ago, my 9-year-old son found me overdosed on heroin. My sister was there. I wasn't breathing. I should be dead. I should have been another statistic so many times. But so my son has the predisposition. He's, already kind of knows the drastic results of it. So why not? So I'm trying to get him and his friends, and I try to take him bowling, and I try to, right now at the age of 10, it's just about exposure to healthy habits. But as they get older, why not teach them how to do community service, do work, picking up trash. The Army has a lot of good values, the core values, leadership, loyalty, duty. I'm not going to go on to them. Just to me, what's working, what we're doing as a culture, how much money we're throwing into these rehabs and those programs where people are just generally there because the judge is telling them, or it's a warm bed in the wintertime and they're not really trying to change themselves. They're just being enabled to continue to do what they do. I'm not saying that we can't be there for those who are still sick and suffering today, but let's maybe take a little more mindset, be more aware of not allowing it to happen, or having it in their back pocket so when they do get deep and dark down the line, the sudden and drastic changes that are needed aren't so drastic and terrorizing. So right now I'm trying to do a small model. I'm not against trying to develop a larger model. If anybody has any ideas or want to chat about it, but again, I'm very humbled by this experience, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ryan. So he's going to do big things. I can feel it. The passion that he has for preventing youth from reaching that point. When I first heard him speak about it a few weeks ago, I knew, I was like, he's got to come speak. And I'm glad he showed up to speak, because I was kind of nervous myself and wasn't sure if I was going to show up to speak tonight. So a little about me. I'm Amanda Markham. I've only been working for CHAPS since April of this year. I started out working in the waiver program, which was really fun, honestly, just helping support people on a daily basis, helping them get through a day successfully, even if it's just washing dishes, doing laundry, having support when you go to the grocery store, facing the doctor, going fishing, taking walks. I mean, those little things really do mean a lot to so many people, and a lot of other people just take those things for granted. The next step in my CHAPS journey was stepping almost immediately into the family peer support role, kind of like the certified peer support, only dealing with families, supporting the entire family instead of just the individual, because the caregivers need just as much support as our individuals do. And almost immediately after that, I stepped into the role of community education and outreach. And as most of you know, Sally Burns was the megamind behind many of the CHAPS functions, especially the Candlelight Vigil. Stepping into the role was a little intimidating at first because she was pretty amazing, and she really got CHAPS out there. And I feel like I've got some really big shoes to fill when it comes to Sally Burns. So we miss you, Sally. I hope you're watching. Another aspect of the community outreach program are the support programs, which there are now 4. We have 4 going on at CHAPS, and all are listed in the programs that you were provided, days and times included. And I'm, to all of you rock stars here, and I'm the recovery rock stars, the rock stars that are supporting our other rock stars. Everybody in this room is a rock star in some form or another. And recovery in every form is a monumental milestone that is achievable and should be celebrated every successful day, every week, every month, year. And as I'm sure all of you know, there are struggles with maintaining recovery because it does have its challenges. Having to face those daily challenges that mental health creates, what you shouldn't face it alone. You don't have to face it alone. And that's the hardest thing to remember when you're experiencing the crisis moment, or even the little things that build up to that crisis moment. You could be in a room full of people. I know I've heard this so many times, be in a room full of people and be the most loneliest person there. It doesn't have to be like that. And sometimes it just takes one little small step to get you out there. And that's always the hardest part, taking the first step. Reaching out to a friend, a support group, an agency, a church, anybody. It's scary and it's really, really hard for a lot of people, especially when they're feeling so down and so alone. It's almost impossible. But starting with that one tiny step, it's almost like reaching for one tiny thread, just one little piece, a simple thing. Daphne, for you, reaching out to a friend who helped reach out to the principal, who helped reach out and helped reach out. You know, there's so many little things, but when you do it, when you get that one tiny cord, watch that thread, or when you get that thread, watch it become a cord. Each time you reach out for support or somebody reaches out for you, suddenly you have several cords that you're not even aware of because somebody's helping, somebody's pulling somebody else in. And when all those cords come together, it's pretty much like a safety net. And what's better to help catch you when you fall? So far, my favorite part of the support groups is most certainly the fact that people continue to come when they are in recovery. They continue to come to help others that are struggling, and that is exactly how the support groups work. Surprisingly, not very many people think about that. Once a person feels better, it could be assumed that they no longer need a support group, or they no longer need a medication. Maybe not, but for those who still choose to attend, they have the opportunity to share their lived experience with other people that are struggling. You can share with others what worked, what didn't work, and what helped you to get through it. But in my experience, I think the biggest part of the support group that stands out is, for instance, Stacy sharing her story, Daphne sharing her story, Ryan sharing his story. For somebody brave enough to share that story, it helps other people open up. So just remember, you're never alone. Supports are everywhere. Family, friends, CHAPS, churches, other agencies. There's so many places. And honestly, sometimes it might even just be at the grocery store. Maybe you're at checkout and have a panic moment. Ask the cashier, please help me. You know, and sometimes that little piece of a thread can lead to a bigger cord, a stronger cord. So, once it's begun, please keep those connections and those cords strong. And someday, somebody's going to need you too. So without further ado, I am going to close this ceremony and begin our presentation for the Candlelight Vigil. If Christina wouldn't mind coming up. And then right after that, we are going to do the Candlelight Vigil, the lighting of the candles. So everyone, stick around for that. And then afterwards, we'll have some snacks that the Journey Center Pathfinders, thank you so much. I've been holding back on stealing some of those cookies. So thank you, everyone. And here we go. Thank you.
Like a sunrise on the longest night, like a rescue, coming just in time, you save me when I cannot see the light. Like a heartbeat through a lonely drum, when I thought that the end had come, you remind me that it's only just begun. Took my soul down to the water, mama, I came back a different man. Long as we got one another singing, oh, oh, oh. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Got a brand new lease on life. Everything's gonna be alright. When I look into your eyes, got a brand new lease on life. Like a deep breath, wanna take you in when I hold you. I'm alive again, you're the proof that God's been listening. You're the side where the grass is green, yeah, you shake me like a tambourine, no jerseys, but we make quite a team. When you took my soul down to the water, mama, I came back a different man. Long as we got one another singing, oh, oh, oh. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Got a brand new lease on life. Everything's gonna be alright. When I look into your eyes, got a brand new lease on life. Lease on life. Lease on life. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Got a brand new lease on life. Everything's gonna be alright. When I look into your eyes, got a brand new lease on life. Took my soul down to the water, mama, I came back a different man. Long as we got one another singing, got a brand new lease on life. Took my soul down to the water, mama, I came back a different man. You say there's so much you don't know. what you need. You can change right next to me. When you're high, I'll take the lows. You can ebb and I can flow. And we'll take it slow and grow as we go. Grow as we go. You won't be the only one. I am unfinished, I got so much left to learn. I don't know how this river runs, but I'd like the company through every twist and turn. Ooh, say it's true that the growing only happens on your own. They don't know me and you don't ever have to leave. If to change is what you need, you can change right next to me. When you're high, I'll take the lows. You can ebb and I can flow. And we'll take it slow and grow as we go. Grow as we go. Grow as we go. Grow as we go. I don't know who we'll become. I can't promise, it's not written in the stars. But I believe that when it's done, we're gonna see that it was better that we grew up together. Tell me you don't wanna leave, 'cause if change is what you need, you can change right next to me. When you're high, I'll take the lows. You can ebb and I can flow. We'll take it slow and grow as we go. Grow as we go. Grow as we go. Grow as we go.
Thank you all so very much. We can hit the lights, blow out the candles, and we're gonna have some delicious cookies and snacks in about 20 seconds put out. And just want to thank the speakers so very much. You were amazing, and everyone for being here. And I wish everyone all the blessings that they so deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh.